Hello and welcome to Enlightened World Network and A Course in Miracles 365. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and I'm happy to be here today, back home in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm delighted that we're covering a topic that's we all try to avoid today. Isn't that exciting? All right. What we're talking about here is lesson 9 in the workbook for students of A Course in Miracles. Well, this is I see nothing as it is now. So as we wait a minute for people to jump on board here, let me just say that this is such a pleasure for me to be able to offer this live stream. And again, as always, I really want to thank Enlightened World Network and Dr. Ruth Anderson for creating this platform and for holding this space, creating this space for us to have these conscious, high level, and beautiful spiritual conversations with people all over the world. So I'm very grateful to be here with all of you and thank all of you for tuning in. I know there are people that have been tuning in regularly here with us. And what I will do is I will, after we talk for a few minutes, get to some of your questions here live. And as always, I very much appreciate all of the shares, all of the comments, all the hearts, the likes. Thank you so much. This is really a beautiful journey, and it's beautiful to share it with people. A Course in Miracles really does very easily lend itself to a shared experience. So, well, as I mentioned, let's talk about how we get in our own way today. Let's spend some special time on this, not out of the sense of the macabre or the sense of wanting to focus on the negative. This is not the TV news here. This is real spiritual practice and real spiritual life. And everybody that embarks on a spiritual practice of any kind runs into the tendency, the all too real human tendency for us to want to just focus on rainbows and unicorns, so to speak. We want to focus on only the positive vibes. And yes, we want to hold as positive vibration as we possibly can at any given moment. Yes, of course, that's true. But the spiritual path is about bringing, as the Course says, all of our illusions to the truth. In other words, bringing the darkness to the light, all the stuff that you've avoided for decades in this lifetime, and quite possibly for many previous lifetimes, you've got to bring it to the truth. Bring it to the light and let the light shine it away. And that's straight out of A Course in Miracles. That's a visual picture that I find very compelling, is bringing your illusions to truth, bringing darkness to the light. That's what all of these exercises are in fact about. That's what the workbook for students is all about. It's what the text is all about. And the Course says things repeatedly, doesn't it? It says it in many different ways. This is true of any spiritual tradition. If you have a meditation practice, each time you show up to meditate, however often that may be, you're really doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Well, A Course in Miracles just really piggybacks that and takes that a step further, because as adult learners, we're stubborn. I'm stubborn, you're stubborn, we're all stubborn. We all have a tendency, a very pronounced habitual tendency to get in our own way, and we need to have things repeated to us. We need to have things repeated in multiple different ways until something clicks and we get it. Which eventually does happen, especially if you continue to show up like you're doing right here for yourself and for everyone else day after day after day, and put in the work. And the beautiful thing about a workbook for students in A Course in Miracles is that the work is not super extensive, to be honest. It has a beautiful, far-reaching impact, but this is something that anyone can do, to sit down for 30 seconds to a minute a couple of times a day. But you don't even have to be seated. You could be walking around. You could be doing anything. You remember to practice, boom, practice really quickly. And that's all that's asked. All that is asked is that we apply the ideas for the day. And as the course says right here in lesson 9 of the workbook, that's a little bit of light, a little bit more light being shown into the darkness. And that's what it is. And if you have some resistance to the word darkness, I know many of you may, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having resistance to that or any other concept or anything that this course presents, because it is a 100% different thought system than what we're raised with. It's exactly the opposite of the world's way of thinking and looking at things. And that's exactly what we need. If we want to bring about long-lasting peace, love, change, spiritual growth, happiness, union with God, yeah, if we want to bring all of that about, which is actually our natural state, already exists. So if we want to become aware of that, experientially aware of that on an ongoing basis, we do need to have awareness of how we get in our own way. This is not all rainbows and unicorns. Wouldn't that be nice if it were? If this were all positive vibes, well, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. We would all be completely enlightened and awake, and we wouldn't have anything like this. That we wouldn't have A Course in Miracles. Why? We wouldn't need it. We wouldn't need it. So let's look at lesson 9 here. And thank you all again for joining me here on Enlightened World Network. I see nothing as it is now. Well, this follows from I see only the past from lesson 7, and it follows directly from the lesson that we covered yesterday, which is lesson 8. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. All right. Well, it would follow that if our mind is preoccupied with past thoughts and we're really looking at the past, we don't see anything as it is right now in the present moment. We simply don't. So why I'm spending some time talking about our inner resistance and the ways that we impede ourselves and get in our own way. Why am I doing that today? Well, lesson 9 goes right into that. And I think this is a very, very straightforward lesson to practice. What we do is just a continuation of what we've been doing, and look around and let your mind and your eye and your gaze alight on certain objects and simply say, I do not see this bookcase as it is now. I do not see these paintings as they are now. I do not see this button as it is now. I do not see this face as it is now. I do not see the light switches as they are now. And just for 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 3-4 times a day, just look at things and tell yourself that you don't see them as they are now. Pretty straightforward as far as the actual practice sessions go. And that's by design. The course does this by design because it doesn't do any good to introduce a tremendous amount of strain on someone who's really skeptical. Think about the first time you encountered this. Maybe you had this type of experience. I mean, if somebody said, okay, you have to meditate for 3 hours a day, silence, no talking, right now, and stay awake, then you would experience possibly considerable resistance to that. By contrast, look around the room and just do the exercise for the sake of the exercise. It's not required that you believe in it. Say that you don't see things as they are now for 30 seconds to a minute. Certainly easier than someone saying, hey, you must meditate every day for 3 hours, and that's going to mean you have to rearrange your life. No, that's not what's going on here. And this is by design. Our thought system is so pervasive in the world that it takes time to reverse it. That's what time is for. And the Course in Miracles in the text in the workbook says that repeatedly, that the function of time is for us to wake up. It's for us to awaken to the truth of who we really are and use that more constructively than we have up until this point. So those are the practice periods. How about the resistance? Okay, the resistance part may come up. It may come up. And why is that coming up? Well, it may be for you, and it frequently is for a lot of people, that we believe that we have to understand and grasp things intellectually, with the intellectual mind. Does it make sense to you that you see nothing as it is right now? I mean, honestly, assess that for yourself. Does that make sense? It may. And if it does, perfect, wonderful. If it doesn't, that's also good. Yeah, that's fine. In fact, it's fine if these ideas don't exactly hit home for you intellectually. And what we're looking at is our tendency as human beings to want to grasp everything intellectually, understand it. It needs to fit into our preconceived box, our preconceived notions of what everything is, of how the world's supposed to work, according to our preconceived notions. Well, this course and all of spiritual practice aims to dissolve the walls of that box. Or, if you prefer, awaken us to the truth that the box doesn't exist and never has, in fact, existed. We are not our limitations. And the intellectual mind, as beautiful as it may be in certain circumstances, is a limitation. We are not the intellectual mind. We're not that. So to attempt to understand the essence, the purity of spiritual experience of who we really are. So to attempt to understand that with the intellectual mind is not going to work. It's not going to work. What we can do is we can understand concepts and get closer to the truth. Yes, and that's valuable. But these exercises are designed to, at a fundamental level, help us get rid of our own tendency to have to understand everything intellectually. And you may think, well, I am an intellectual. Okay, no, that may be, and that's fine. And I hope that that has served you in this lifetime. I really do. As somebody who's been to a lot of school myself, it has certainly served me in many ways that I'm grateful for. But at the bottom of all of it, we don't need to try to grasp everything intellectually. It's futile. Why? In the end, spirituality is about experience. These exercises are doing nothing more than helping us, and we need help, do we not? Yes, right? To undo our preconceived notions about the world and about who we are, why there are limitations. Use the analogy of a box, trying to fit everything in our box, our preconceived ideas of what our experience should be like are limitations. They're limitations. And if you would undo those limitations, then all the workbook for students is asking of you to do is to show up, do the exercises as they are. All right, so let's go online here and take some questions, comments, see who's joining us here today. Thank you for joining me. Shared, yes, teacher, thank you so much for coming and sharing. And yes, happy birth month to Cindy. All right. We're going to have fun with this. If you caught yesterday's live stream, you'll know that Cindy made a couple of, she didn't intend them, but live appearances on the broadcast. And February 2nd was her birthday. So she is celebrating her birth month officially. And that's totally cool. I love the term birth month. So, put it in the comments too. Give her a shout out. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. And so Deidre writes, it's so much easier when you give yourself permission to not have to know the minutia of everything. Oh yeah. Everything that raises a question doesn't seem to fit in said box. Great point. We obsess as human beings over minutia, don't we? Details, details. We have to know all the details. I'm just as guilty of this as anyone. Guys, I've been to graduate school. I've been to law school specifically. Yeah, that's what I think of that. Details. We'll talk about obsessing over details, intellectual details, mental gymnastics. And yes, that has served me very, very well in a number of ways that I'm deeply grateful for. However, it's the epitome of suffering on so many levels. Graduate school was like that for me. Maybe if you've been to graduate school or any other form of advanced schooling, advanced degrees, advanced seminars, workshops, whatever, there's a lot of emphasis on the intellect. And in fact, the people that received A Course in Miracles, Helen Schucman and William Tedford, were PhDs from Columbia University. We'll talk about, and as they say, they were heavily invested in the values of the world. Well, I was too. That's where law school came from. That's where minutia come from. That's something that glorifies the categorizing and the breaking down of the intellectual mind, the ego, quite honestly, the need to break things down and categorize them all. And you're right, there's a sense of ease that comes from releasing ourselves from that need to understand and judge everything. And thank you all for tuning in and joining me here live today. This has been so much fun. Feel free to continue to add comments. I will check them here throughout the day. And have fun. Have fun with this. If I know we're talking about this not being all rainbows and unicorns, yet at the same time, I think a sense of humor is great. Laughter is beautiful medicine. It truly is beautiful medicine. And if you are able to laugh at yourself and the ways that you get in your own way here without taking it super seriously, then I think that you'll have a better experience going through these exercises. And again, if that's not the case, that's okay, because the workbook says just do the exercise. That's all. Nothing else is required. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back here at the same time, noon Eastern time. So I'll start at about 12:05 tomorrow, right here on Enlightened World Network. Thank you all for joining me and sharing this. I really appreciate your time and your investment of your energy into spiritual practice and growth. And it's so much fun for me to be doing this with you. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow.